All right, so I got some questions from Walter in Sydney, Australia about my near-death experience. So I'm going to try to go through his questions and answer them as well as I can. And at the end, I'll show his full questions so that if you want to take a look at what he had to say, you can see that. So the first question, is spiritual development a short experience? Um, so the short answer is yes, that it is a short experience, and I know that it doesn't feel like a short experience, but it really is. And you have to understand that as souls, we're timeless, eternal beings that exist outside of time. And in that setting, looking at what it is to live, you know, 60, 80, 100 years, whatever a lifetime is, it looks like it's really, really short. And I'm here with everybody else living life year after year, and I know it feels like a long time, but it's really brief when you consider that our existence is going to be not, not not like a very long period of time, but like in a existence in a realm that's outside of time. And so, any sort of existence inside of time is going to end up appearing very brief, very short. Um, would you have been allowed to have stayed as a glowing ball in a sea of souls? I think the short answer to that is yes. God didn't force us to come to this physical reality, but the but really, it's in our benefit, and God was very convincing and explaining, not through any lies or deception, but being very honest and upfront and saying, look, here's the benefit that you have to gain from coming uh, to this form of training or these incarnations. And I don't think that a typical new soul would say no to God because God was very matter of factly stating the truth that hey, you have a whole lot to gain by coming here. So yes, I think we could have stayed in that early phase of development, but um, I don't think anyone would choose that, given that there's so much benefit to us for coming here. Why do souls want to progress and develop spiritually? So the short answer is because we can increase our happiness substantially. When we first started out, sure, we were happy and content, but it was like a low level contentment. By coming through here and getting our development and maturing, we can then go to significantly higher levels of happiness. And so that's the reason why souls want to progress. I think typically a soul can relatively easily see other souls that are at a higher level or at a lower level and recognize that if they get a little bit more advancement, they can move to that higher level of happiness and enjoy their existence so much more. And from that timeless spiritual perspective, a lifetime looks very, very brief. And so a soul um, eventually they're going to realize that hey, I can move, I can see these souls that are at a happier higher level than I am, and I could go through just a brief lifetime and I could move and I could enjoy that kind of happiness also. And so souls eventually choose to progress because they want to move on to higher levels of happiness. Doesn't embarking on a soul development journey carry risks? If so, what are they? Are you fully aware of the risks before you undertake to live a life on Earth or another planet? Um, yeah, so I think there are risks, but I think it's important to understand what those risks are. Uh, what I saw or what I was shown was that all the risks associated with coming here to Earth are temporary. Like we could never screw up so bad that we can't correct our mistakes. No matter how bad we screw up, no matter what we do, we're still going to be able to work through those difficulties, overcome them, and then move on and you know work past them. But the risks that we um, take is that we're going to screw up and then for therefore bring ourselves some unhappiness or some unpleasant experiences that we're going to need to go through as we work through resolving those mistakes or those things that we've done. So yeah, there's risks of going through some unhappiness, some unpleasant scenarios that we bring on ourselves, but all those risks are short term and they don't last forever. There's no like permanent risk to what we do, no matter how bad our mistakes may be. Um, Perhaps there is a gift in suffering in that it teaches us lessons which allow us to grow. Um, So yeah, I think there's a spiritual flip side to our physical suffering that's kind of hard to explain, except to say that, we gain a whole lot by going through these difficult experiences here on Earth, and there's growth to it. There's maturing. There's a increase in our ability to empathize with others who are also going through suffering. Um, all these hardships that we go through, they end up working to our benefit. I know there's a lot of people going through some really hard times, and I don't want to minimize that. But at the same time, I think it's important to recognize that there is a silver lining to those difficulties and that suffering, and that we have a lot to gain from what we go through. I think you said in an interview that those who choose more challenging lives will develop at a quicker pace spiritually, but why would a soul want to develop quicker? Would advantages, what advantages are there for developing quicker? And is there really any difference in living 900 lives versus 1,000 lives? How much quicker are we speaking? Is there time in the spirit realm? And if not, then what is the advantage of developing quicker? Um, so, it's like you've got a task to do. Like, let's say you're digging a hole in the backyard. You could go out there with a teaspoon and it's really easy, no struggle at all. Or you can just go out there with a shovel and get it taken care of quickly. And it's the same kind of thing with coming here. I think I think a better way to look at this would be, okay, you're looking at you're nearing the end of your um, physical incarnations, and you're tired of it. You want to get it over with and be done with it. You could be looking at, like, let's say, 3 or 4 relatively easy lives, or maybe you could get rid of it, get one more difficult life, and then be done with Earth and be able to move on. And I think that's I don't know, maybe it's a better way for me to look at it, is that, you know, I think souls get kind of tired of coming here. They get tired of these physical incarnations and just want to be done with it and move on to the much more pleasant forms of our existence. And so they might choose a harder life. And I don't know exactly what that math looks like, but there's a certain base level of understanding and difficulty that we need to go through so that we can raise ourselves to the level of understanding necessary to move on. And um, you know, when souls are given that choice of how difficult they want to make their life, or how easy they want to make it, and then maybe they have more lives they need to go through, every soul looks at that those possibilities and makes their own decision. Um, I think also the 900 or 1,000 lives, I don't really know how many lives the typical soul would leave, but I think it's less than that. I don't think it's quite that high. Um, all right. Have we lived multiple lives? And Walter goes on to point out that in the Jeff Marrow podcast, when I was asked about reincarnation, I didn't have anything to say. I didn't want to talk about it. Um, First, I'd like to say that yes, we've all lived multiple lives. During my experience, it was painfully obvious that I have lived multiple lives, and I know that pretty much everybody else has also. Um, I didn't want to talk about it with Jeff Mara because there's people in my life that aren't open to the possibility of reincarnation. The church I go to, they're not really open to that idea of reincarnation. So I was very hesitant to talk about it because uh, it kind of creates problems for me in my personal life. But that interview was almost 2 years ago. I've kind of decided that I should just go ahead and be more honest and upfront and share what I've learned. Um, and the people that aren't going to listen to that, well, they might not listen to anything I had to say anyway. But I've decided to share some of what I learned about um, my own reincarnation and what happened. And yeah, we live multiple lives. That's just how it works. I mean, I don't know why there's so much hesitation to accept that. It doesn't really make sense because there's so many people, not just me, but there's lots of other people who have seen this also, that we just have multiple lives. That's just how it works. That's the best process for developing our souls. Um, if we have lived multiple lives, how many lives does one have to live before before one reaches the face of God level? Perhaps thousands of lives. So I don't know. I don't have an answer, and it's certainly going to be different for different souls. Um, I did see a couple numbers, and I don't quite understand the significance of them. One of them was 50, and one of them was 500, and I'm not sure the significance of that. I would estimate that's kind of the ballpark number of lives you might be looking at is uh, maybe a couple hundred at the most, but certainly, you know, most souls would be looking at 10, 20 lives minimum is what I would expect. But again, I don't know. That answer wasn't given to me, and I don't know for sure. But I would not anticipate we're talking thousands and thousands of lives. I would think we're talking hundreds of lives, or a couple hundred lives at the most. Why is being an angry person not detrimental to spiritual development? Promiscuity is detrimental. All right, so uh, let me try to explain that a little bit. We're all born with, or not all of us, but almost everybody is born with some sexual desires. They get to a certain age, and they have anger that comes at sometimes. Like that's just a natural part of being a person. Um, if you lean into that anger and you're mean to other people, you mistreat other people, then that's bad for your spiritual development. As far as your sexuality goes, if you lean in toward to excessive promiscuity, if you if you just don't embrace the love aspect of our sexual nature, like there's a negative aspect of that as well. I don't really view it as detrimental so much as we move to higher and higher levels, we should be able to exercise more and more self-control and recognize that um, our sexuality is meant to be more of a monogamous type of thing in a loving, committed relationship, and that just running out there and giving into um, our physical sexual desire without any kind of restraint, it's a bad thing. Or bad's not the right way. Uh, it's not the kind of conduct that a higher level soul would be engaging in. And as we move to higher levels, we need to control ourselves and exercise the kind of restraint. And we might be angry at other people, but we still need to control ourselves and act in a certain way. And same with our sexual nature. We might have certain desires and wants and whatnot, but we still need to control ourselves and act appropriately. Anyway, I hope that answers the question. Can unborn souls exert influence on humans? So I saw firsthand two examples of this. That yes, there is some amount of influence that souls can exert on us. When I was before I was born, I was able to exert some influence on my parents and help pick my name. There was reasons why I wanted the name Aaron Thomas Green. Some of those are kind of cool. Um, the first is AA. Aaron starts with AA, and Alcoholics Anonymous would be something that was important in my life, and I thought that was neat to have that as part of the name. Um, I'm an electrical engineer, and green has a EE in it. Electrical engineer and EE, it's kind of like the same thing. And also the company I work for, Newport News Shipbuilding, NNS, the last letter of each of those names uh, is comes out to NNS. And then there's a couple other reasons why that name appealed to me that I'm not able to really go into, but um, there was reasons why that name appealed to me that had to do with the life I was going to live. And for that reason, I thought it was a great name, and I was because it would be my name and something that I would have my entire life. I was able to exert a little more influence on my parents than we might normally be able to with other situations or other aspects. Another thing that I think is very interesting is so I have three children. My oldest daughter is 21. When she was conceived, before she was conceived, I could feel it felt like I was being pushed or encouraged to make a baby. Like I could feel that this was like an outside influence. I didn't really understand it at the time. I didn't know why I was like being pushed to do something. But I could totally feel it. Like I knew that there was something pushing me to have a baby. There's like a personality to it. Or I'm sorry, not have a baby, but to, be intimate with my wife. And later that day, my daughter was conceived. And now that I've lived with her for 20 years, I recognized that it was her, like her personality was encouraging me and my wife to conceive. And I definitely felt that influence at the time and recognized it. And so for those two reasons, I think it's clear to me at least that yes, unborn souls can exert influence over humans. So bear with me a minute. Let me try to share these questions and just show you what Walter from Sydney, Australia, uh, what his questions were, and he had a little bit more detail that I'll try to show as well. All right, so here's his first question, and he has some extra things to add to it. I'm just going through this kind of quickly, so hopefully, if anybody wants to read these in details, you can just pause it. All right, well, hopefully I've answered your questions, Walter. I'll make another video. There were some other questions you have, but I wanted to break this into two videos. So thanks for listening, and God bless.